अच्छञ्योरावृणीमहे गातुं यज्ञाय गातुं यज्ञपतये दैवी स्वस्तिरस्तु नः स्वस्तिर्मानुषेभ्यः ऊर्ध्वं जिगातु भेषजम् शन्नो अस्तु द्विपदे शञ्चतुष्पदे ॐ शान्तिः 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 सहस्रशीर्षा पुरुषः सहस्राक्षः सहस्रपात् स भूमिं विश्वतो वृत्वा अत्यतिष्ठद्दशाङ्गुलम् पुरुष एवेदगं सर्वम् यद्भूतं यच्च भूयम् उतामृतत्वस्येषानः यदन्नेनातिरोहति एतावानस्य महिमा अतो ज्यायागिश्च पूरुषः पादोऽस्य विश्वाभूतानि त्रिपादस्यामृतम् दिवि त्रिपादूर्ध्व उदैत्पुरुषः पादोऽस्येहाभवात् पुनः ततो विश्वम् व्यक्रामत् शासनानशने अभि तस्माद्विराडजायत विराजो अधिपूरुषः स जातो अत्यरिच्यत पश्चाद्भूमिमथो पुरः यत्पुरुषेण हविषा देवा यज्ञमतन्वत वसन्तो अस्यासीदाज्यम् ग्रीष्म इध्मः शरद्धभिः सप्तास्यासन् परिधजः त्रिः सप्त समिधः कृताः देवागद्यज्ञन्तन्वानाः अबध्नन् पुरुषम् पशुम् तं यज्ञम् बर्हिषि प्रोक्षन् पुरुषम् जातमग्रतः तेन देवा अयजन्त साध्या ऋषयश्च ये तस्माद्यज्ञात् सर्वहुतः सम्भृतम् वृषदाज्यम् पशोगस्तागश्चक्रे वायम्यान् आरण्यान् ग्राम्याश्च ये तस्माद्यज्ञात् सर्वहुतः ऋचः सामानि जज्ञिरे छन्दागुंसि जज्ञिरे तस्मात् यजुस्तस्मादजायत तस्मादश्वा अजायन्त ये केचोभजादतः गावोह जज्ञिरे तस्मात् तस्माज्जाता अजावजः यत्पुरुषम् व्यदधुः कतिधा व्यकल्पयन् मुखम् किमस्य कौ बाहू कावूरूपादावुच्येते ब्राह्मणोऽस्य मुखमासीत् बाहूराजन्यः कृतः ऊरू तदस्य जद्वैश्यः पद्भ्यागुम् शूद्रो अजायत चन्द्रमा मनसो जातः चक्षोः सूर्यो अजागत मुखादिन्द्रश्चाग्निश्च प्राणात् वायुरजायत नाभ्या आसीदन्तरिक्षम् शीर्ष्णोद्यौः समवर्तत पद्भ्याम् भूभिर्दिशः श्रोत्रात् तथा लोकागम् अकल्पयन् वेदाहमेतम् पुरुषम् महान्तम् आदित्यवर्णम् तमसस्तु पारे सर्वाणि रूपाणि विचित्य धीरः नामानि कृत्वाभिवदन् यदास्ते धाता पुरस्ताद्यमुदा जहार चक्रः प्रविद्वान् प्रदिशश्च तस्रः तमेवम् विद्वानमृत इह भवति नान्यः पन्था अयनाय विद्यते यज्ञेन यज्ञमयजन्त देवाः तानि धर्माणि प्रथमान्यासन् ते हनाकम् महिमानः सचन्ते यत्र पूर्वे साध्याः सन्ति देवाः अभ्यः सम्भूतः पृथिव्यैरसाच्च विश्वकर्मणः समवर्तताधि तस्य त्वष्टा विदधद्रूपमेति तत्पुरुषस्य विश्वमाजानमग्रे वेदाहमेतम् पुरुषम् महान्तम् आदित्यवर्णम् तमसः परस्तात् तमेवम् विद्वानमृत इह भवति नान्यः पन्था विद्यते जनाय प्रजापतिश्चरति गर्भे अन्तः अजायमानो बहुधा विजायते तस्य धीराः परिजानन्ति योनिम् मरीचीनाम् पदमिच्छन्ति वेधसः यो देवेभ्य आतपति यो देवानाम् पुरोहितः पूर्वो यो देवेभ्यो जातः नमो रुचाय ब्राह्मये रुचम् ब्राह्मम् जनयन्तः देवा अग्रे तदब्रुवन् यस्त्वैवम् ब्राह्मणो विद्यात् तस्य देवा असन्वशे ह्रीश्च ते लक्ष्मीश्च पत्न्यौ अहोरात्रे पार्श्वे नक्षत्राणि रूपम् अश्विनम् व्याप्तम् इष्टम् मनिषाण अमुम् मनिषाण सर्वम् मनिषाण ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः
Namaste. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we have started on this verse, mantra, tam yajñam barhishi praukshanna purushan jatamagratah tena deva ayajanta sadhya rishayaschaye. This is the mantra. So, up to now, the Purusha Suktam was describing yajna. So yajna, of course, should be understood as the entire process of living. Yeah, that is really just the right way to look at it. The whole life is a yajna, whether we understand it or not, but it is a yajna. And if we understand it, then we can perform the yajna to our benefit. Really, this is what the whole creation is meant for. From the very beginning we have said that Ishvara. So, sajataha atyarichyata. And so the only way to have a creation is to have a pretend creation. There is no real creation, it's a pretend creation. It's like a play. And in the play, you have characters like you and I who don't have a complete understanding that this is a yajna. We don't have the script of the play very clear in our minds. And so as a result of that, we are a little bit confused. Confused in the sense that if not knowing that this is a play, if the play is not going according to our liking, we are not happy about it. It's almost like we go back to the director and producer and said, I need a better role. This role is not appropriate for me. And then of course we mess up the script. But if we understand that this is a play, a very sophisticated, multi-act, multi-dimensional play, three-dimensional, no more than three-dimensional, then and in some ways it is something like if you knew that this was a play from the very beginning, then you would be able to fulfill your part accurately. Fulfill your part well. But suppose you are inebriated, or you have taken some kind of an exotic drug which makes you go haywire. And even though you knew that it was a play, but now you've messed it up. And so the director and the producers will say, what is this guy doing? He doesn't look like he's himself. He's acting very funny, literally acting very funny, not acting to the way the script is. And so hopefully that the drugs and the inebriation will wear off and you go back to understanding that this is a play. This is our situation. I think this is a good description of what happens. And so our not understanding that this is a yajna, our not understanding that this is a pretend play, we take it seriously and we don't like the bad parts given to us. We want everything to be a comedy. And we don't understand that it's a play, even if it's a tragedy, it's a part of a play. And I have to play my part with that. And it's multi-act, so everything is not over in one life. We change our clothing and come back again to this rather lengthy play. This is what happens. But the way to wear off the inebriation is to ward off the effects of the Maya Shakti. So our Shastras say this, that the Maya Shakti is exactly like having a drink. You are under the spell and you're not thinking properly. But within the Maya Shakti, there are ways of understanding and to ward off the negativity of the ignorance. And once you have an understanding, then it might take a little while, but you will now start to work in a harmony, and the message is, in the harmonious nature of this play is, all characters are okay. This we're going to come to when we go into the differences between Brahmana, Kshatriya and all that. All that is going to come. But really speaking, just because one is Brahmana, he is not superior to anyone else. These are just roles in a play, and all actors are okay the way they are. And what they do in the play doesn't matter. This I have to understand, and I don't accept it. No, I need a better part. And And so Ishvara is very patient and says, okay, well, right now he doesn't seem to understand, so hopefully he will. So let's give him a better, change of roles. Hey, all of that is to explain the yajna. Yajna can be taken as a process of living. It's kind of like a play. So up until now, what was described here were the samagri. Samagri means all the wherewithals to do the yajna, all the ancillary things that you need to collect, because there is a process involved. You have to do it properly. All that was done. Okay? Now with this verse, we elevate the understanding at a different level. How? So, the main subject of the yajna is now being described. So here Swami Maheshananji says that if you look at a yajna, the Vedic yajna, there you have two kinds of parts. So one would be the principal part, mukhya, and the other one is the secondary part, which is called gauna. Mukhya and gauna. And here is the difference between them. If you don't have gauna, but you have mukhya, you can complete the yajna. It is not ideal, it might take a little longer time, you may have to get some workarounds, but it is possible to execute a yajna as long as the principal segment is there. The principal sacrifice, the sacrificial subject is there. These ancillary subject matters don't have to be always there. Okay? Now, if on the other hand, the principal one is not there, then the other ones really don't matter because the yajna will not be complete. Here Swami Maheshananji gives a very beautiful example. He says, take the Patanjali yogas. Patanjali yoga. And so there what you have is, okay, before we do all the parts to it, the principal meaning of yoga is samadhi. That is the principal meaning of the word yoga. Samadhi means you are quiet and you are not bothered by anything else. You're happy, you're peaceful, and no effort is required. You can stay there as long as you want to. This is called samadhi, and this is equal. So when you say yoga, yoga equals samadhi. Okay? Now Swamiji says, so the yoga is the principal, the mukhya aspect of samadhi. In fact, samadhi and yoga are one and the same. But if you look at some of the parts involved, which is yama, niyama, asana, pratyahara, pranayama, pratyaharas, dharana, dhyanam, they are also called yoga. Even though that it is not really samadhi. Only the samadhi is the real yoga. So the real yoga is the mukhya, and all the yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, etc., pratyahara, all those are secondary. So this verse describes the distinction between principal and secondary as far as the main subject of yajna. The main subject of the yajna is Purusha, you and I. We are the prince, we are the yajna. So here Purusham is as good as yajna. Okay? So Purusham and yajna, it's not as though I have become yajna, but my status as the principal part. How principal part? Because the whole yajna will not succeed if my sacrifice is not done. This is what we have to understand. You can do some. So this is what we call Purusha Pashuhu. So there are two kinds of Pashuhu. Pashuhu means an animal. One is called a Pashu. Like all the things that were described, horses, this, that, or the other. These are all different Pashu. But there is another kind of Pashu called Purusha Pashu. So now our discussion will be on the Purusha Pashu, which is you and I. And this is being explained as the principal aspect of yajna, so much so that you can call yourself yajna itself. Just like you can call yoga as the samadhi. Similarly here also, the Purusha can be called yajna. Okay? That's the case. Let's look at what needs to be done. So first, just a slight word meaning of this verse, although the complete meaning of the verse will come later on when we complete the study of all aspects of it, including sadhya, rishayascha, all of that will have to happen. But for the time being, what it says is, the agrataha jatam purusham. So, Purusham Jatam Agrataha. Agrataha means from the very beginning. Because the creation of all the beings was done right at the very beginning of a kalpa. And there is really no beginning as such, because each beginning of the kalpa is in fact the ending of the previous kalpa. So it is just unmanifest which became manifest again. So it is no real beginning. It's kind of like beginning of a day. When you wake up, then you start a new day. It doesn't mean that you are fresh. You're already a leftover from the previous day. So similarly here also, agrataha means just from the very beginning. So this Purusham is to be sacrificed by the Devas, the Sadhyas and the Rishis. And so we will go into the meaning of Devas and the differences between Devas, Sadhyas and Rishis. But collectively, they are now offering the Purusha Pashu, the human beings, as the principal yajna. And how do they do this? Tam yajnam barhishi praukshan. Purusham jatam agrataha. So Purusham and yajnam. So the first line is tam yajnam. And this has to be equated to the Purusham, which is also jatam and agrataha. And this is now barhishi praukshan. By who? Tena devaha ayajanta. Ayajanta is a past tense of yajna. When you do present tense, you say yajante. We do yajna. But when you do the past tense, you add the as you know, and so it becomes ayajanta. Yajna was done. Means that the whole process, the whole play, the very function of the play and how it is to be done was all done from the very beginning. The script was all set. It was done by the Devas, Sadhyas and Rishayas, and it is done in the following manner: by offering the Purusham as a sacrifice, praukshan. Praukshan means to actually throw. When you put something in the fire, you throw it. This is called praukshan. And so you throw this. You can even say sprinkle if you want to, but throwing is a better way to do it. Better way to explain it. You actually put something into the fire, and you put the person into the fire. And we will understand. We will try to understand how that is later. But I'm giving you the word meaning. So barhishi praukshan. Barhishi means the fire. It is the Purusham in the yajna is thrown into the fire as a sacrifice. This is the yajna. Okay? So barhi means fire and barhishi means in the fire. Seventh case of barhi. In the fire it is thrown. Okay? So now we will go into, now that the word meaning of the sentence hopefully has been covered, now let us understand the overall sense of it. Okay? So the first question that was raised by Swami Maheshananji and answered is, why is the Purusha the pradhana and the other animals are gauna? Pradhana means a principal, as we saw. Gauna means secondary. Why is the human being, the sacrifice of the human being, considered to be the pradhana? Why can't we say that the sacrifice, the animal sacrifice in the yajna, that should be done, however it is done, that should be it? It says here, those pashus are not the pradhana. And so just as we said before, until you do the pradhana yajna, the yajna is not complete. Yajna is not complete. So you can do some yajna where you sacrifice a goat or something that according to the Vedas, that may be for some limited goals. But if you want the total goal, which is the ultimate goal, which is ultimate freedom, you have to throw yourself into the fire. How and why and in which way and where is now being discussed. Okay? So this answers the question that why the Purusha is the pradhana, but does not completely answer. There's some more other things that are coming. So the pradhanatvam, the principality of the Purusha as being the sacrifice for the yajna, is for the following reason. This is a good way to segment the difference between a human being and an animal. So what happens is that a Purusha can independently sacrifice himself or herself. So this is what is called swatantrena. Swatantra. Swatantra means this is my choice. I am willingly doing it. It really is very much close to the aranya and gramya. So the aranya, as you remember, I'm just reminding you of this trend of thinking. Aranya was where I willingly submit myself so that I don't feel constrained, and that increases the level of happiness in me. So the whole thing in life really is swatantrata and paritantrata. Swatantrata means freedom, it means freedom of choice, and paratantrata means force to do something. The force to do something is always equated to dukkha, problems. Anytime you are asked to do something that, whether you like it or not, you feel constrained. And anytime you do something on your own, you feel good about it. So one of the reasons where these are differing from each other is that anything that is being done willingly can be done by Purusha, not by animals. No animal will sacrifice themselves willingly. That's not possible. But the Purusha can do it. Why would the Purusha do it is being discussed later. So here, another aspect of this is in the Vedas, you have two principal parts. You have the Karma Kanda and the Jnana Kanda. Okay? The Karma Kanda has to do with do's and don'ts, which is called vidhi. Vidhi is used as the word where this is the way it should be done. And vidhi means you have to follow the vidhi. You are not independent in not following the vidhi. That would spoil the whole thing. If you want to get the benefit of the karma, to get the karma phala, you have to follow the vidhi. So there is no swatantrata, there is paratantrata. So any karma has its own phalam, and you like to have some good deeds either in this life or in next life, and so you do follow the vidhi of the karma kanda. There is no vidhi in jnana kanda. So this is interesting. There's if you're doing puja, either in the home or in the temple or something like that, you have to follow the vidhi. Like for example, supposing you're doing puja at home and you just got up from the bed and you haven't brushed your teeth, let alone taken a shower, that is not considered to be good. You have to purify the patram, the kalasham, and in order to provide the puja. You cannot just go there to the puja sthanam and do yawning and not sit properly and so on and so forth. You have to light the lamp and have hopefully some incense stick. There is a vidhi involved with it. And also it should be done at the right time. You cannot do it in the middle of the night unless there is a special occasion like Maharudram or something like this. There is a vidhi involved. There is no such vidhi in the study. It will be better if you take a shower and have a cup of coffee and sit down and study. It's much better. But you don't have to do it that. You can get up in the morning and you are half sleepy and you just want to meditate. Do it. That's wonderful. There's no time for meditation. It's better to do it when it's quiet and so on. That's a separate thing. It is better or worse is okay. But right or wrong are not there. So the Jnana Kanda is based on independence. In fact, this in the Bhagavad Gita, this is the difference between karma and karma as a yoga. That's the main thing. Karma and karma yoga. And so, again, the same thing on the Aranya Gramya discussion. If you are forced to do things and your family is getting mad at you, your spouse is yelling at you and saying, you were supposed to do this and you forgot to bring the vegetables, or doing this, that, or the other. Oops. No, I won't. Okay, I'll try not to make the mistake next time. You have to do it the right way. This is called karma. So this is the difference between rights and duties. If you're always thinking about rights, it is my right. I have to play golf on the weekend. And I don't care what else happens in the house or something. I have to play golf. I'm a member of this club and I have paid money, and this is called rights. And duty is no such rights. You have to ask yourself, what can I do? What is necessary? And if you have to give up something, playing golf on the weekend, so be it. Because everybody has to do some sacrifice. Life is a compromise. And if you do that willingly, this is what is called. So Swami Dayanand used to say that. He says, I would say that a very good way to describe Karma Yoga is attitude. What attitude are you doing things with? If you are forced to do it, then it means that your attitude did not help you in that manner. If you offered it yourself, then others are happy, you are also happy. So this is the difference between the Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda. Jnana Kanda, as we will see also in more detail, means that it has to be done independently. So the sacrifice, going back to the sacrifice in the yajna, why the Purusha's sacrifice is most important is that it is willingly done. And why willingly done, this we will see a little bit later on. But willingly done, at least let's understand that. And so here there is quite a bit of discussion amongst Vedantins and also Karmakandins. So for example, in Jaimini Sutras, which is the Karma Sutras, it says, Amnayasya kriyarthatvad anarthakyam atat arthanam. It's a very famous sutra, which is well discussed in all on Vedanta for understanding. Which means, Jaimini says that the meaning of Vedas, the main purpose of the Vedas is to do kriya, is to do karma. And everything is ended with the suffix tavya, kartavya. Kartavya means must be done. You will be sorry if you don't do it. It must be done. Kartavya, shrotavya, etc. So here, some people say, but wait a second. Even in the Upanishads, it says, Atma va are shrotavya. So in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Yajnavalkya, one considered to be one of the greatest rishis, who was married to 2 women. So it makes me feel a little better that at least I'm also married, although to just one person. I have a hard time with just one person. I cannot deal with 2 people. But Yajnavalkya had 2 wives. And so when he was taking complete sannyasa from it, he was discussing with his wife what should be done. So he said, Are, my dear, Atma shrotavya mantavya nididhyasitavya. It is given. So people say, wait a second, even in Jnana Kanda, because this is an Upanishad which is part of the Jnana section of the Vedas, there is a Tavya. What's the difference? It's the same thing. So all the scholars say no. This is not a Vidhi, it's a Vidhi Chaya. It's a shadow of a Vidhi. And the real meaning is, it would be good if you do Shravanam, Mananam and Nididhyasanam. It doesn't mean that you have to do it. But it says there is a difference between, and Panini Sutras, there's a lot of discussion about this when we went to school. So there is a difference between must and should. The words are the same. Anyway, all I'm saying is that in the Jnana Kanda, freedom is the most important thing. And not only freedom, but also initiative, self-initiative. And if you want to not study, that's okay. You are the loser. If you want to study at odd hours, it's okay. It's better than not studying. If you do it sporadically, it's okay. Regularly, better. And so, but there is no vidhi involved in this. Vidhi involved. Very interesting. There's Swami Maheshananji makes this point. He says there should not, in the Jnana Kanda, in the obtaining of freedom, of moksha, one should not even ask for moksha. You cannot say, "Oh Ishvara, please give me moksha. I'm tired. I've been studying Vedanta for so long. I don't see as much results that I expected. Can you please help me, purify my mind, and please give me moksha?" And if you're listening quietly and in a very sensitive manner, Ishvara is telling you right there and then, you're already free. But I ignore that. That voice within me which is the voice of the acharyas, of all of these, of the sampradaya and so on. I ignore it. No, I want moksha. You have moksha already. I don't, this is ignored. And Swami Maheshanji gives a beautiful example. He says, supposing you are suffering from lack of sleep, your insomnia, and you want to really desperately want to go to sleep, and you keep praying, "Oh, I want to go to sleep, I want to go to sleep." As long as you're praying, sleep will not come. Because the sleep is going to say, "He's very busy praying to me." Let him pray. Let him pray. You're saying, whoever you pray to, either the sleep god or Ishvara or yourself, or it doesn't matter, you're praying. You're busy praying. Swamiji says, as long as that happens, the sleep will not come. So when will the sleep come? When you stop praying. You stop desiring. Substitute the word desiring. Don't even desire to go to sleep. Just be quiet. And if there are thoughts in the mind and so on and so forth, and this is our daily challenge. As I grow older, I find that I do get up once or twice during the night. And occasionally it is very difficult to go back to sleep because you've already slept for a while. You don't need to go to sleep, but it's still like 3:30 in the morning. And Swami Dayanand used to say that, which is a very good lesson that I remember from him. He said, again, this is the thing about vidhi. This is the talk about Jnana Kanda and Karma Kanda. So the Karmakandins will say, go get up at 4 o'clock, which is the Brahma Abhyasa time. And if you cannot get up, put an alarm. And get up and quickly take a shower and get going. Because everything is quiet, which is true. Things are sattvic, you should be doing it. 4 o'clock. Swami Dayananda used to say, he says, tell me, supposing you get up at 3:30 or 4 o'clock and you're fresh for a while and you're congratulating yourself. Then during the day, because you have not had enough sleep, you are yawning, you're tired, and you're not able to function, and the day is not that effective. Tell me, what is the sense of getting up at 3:30? Sleep in whenever you can. I mean, hopefully not until 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock. You still get up between 5 or 6, hopefully, after about 6 or 7 hours of sleep. But get a complete sleep and get up at that time. And so so just be quiet. So getting up in the morning, and that's the point I was making. Sometimes I get up at 3:30. And if I have a lot of things that I need to do, they all pop up. And occasionally I have a difficulty in going back to sleep. But generally speaking, what you need to do is to just keep quiet. And if some thought occurs, then you say later, not now. And the mind also listens to you. And going back to the main point we're talking about, you don't desire to go back to sleep. You just, sleep comes and engulfs you. And so here the point is that don't even ask for mukti from Ishvara. Because Ishvara, if you find that you are sensitive to the voices within you, you will just absorb yourself in the fact, in understanding that I am already mukta. That itself will take a little while, but that is the direction that we have to go to. Okay? Here in this dichotomy between vidhi and non-vidhi, these are big discussions that go on with a lot of substance behind them, with a lot of ammunition and so on. These are the deeper discussions. So Swami Maheshananda gives a very interesting story. He spends a lot of time just reciting the story. So I will shorten it just to make a point. Okay? So I'll leave out some of the details and so on. So in one of the 18 Puranas, there is a Purana called Skanda Purana. So this story is from Skanda Purana and illustrates the distinction between vidhi and non-vidhi. Okay? So it appears that there was a deep forest with a lot of foliage. And at one time there might have been some civilization there, but over the time, really it was all taken over by green foliage and it has become a jungle. So much so that really speaking, no city people go there, and it was occupied by bhils. So bhils are people who live by agriculture, and they occasionally have to kill animals to feed themselves and so on. Adivasis, Vanavasis and Adivasis. They have no connection to the outside. And in fact, just as at this point, if I may mention that Swami Dayananda Ji, when he was starting this ashram near Anaikatti in Tamil Nadu, and I have been there many, many times, it's in the middle of a forest. Really, one time I was, just to give you an idea, I'm not joking, I was attending a 1 week course with Swami Dayanandji one time, and his evening class starts at 5 o'clock, or maybe at 5:30 or something. And so after lunch, then we take a little nap, and then we go for a walk or something. So every day I used to do that. I would contemplate, go for a walk on the sides of the road. And this is the road that connects east to west, all the way from Bay of Bengal all the way up to Arabian Sea. East-west goes through right next to Anaikati. A lot of traffic there. And so I used to walk there. So one day I was walking, and a jeep came behind me and slowed down, and I looked at it. It was the manager of our ashram. And so he stopped by and he said, Kapoorji, where are you going? So I said, I just go for a walk. And so he says, there is a class at 5 o'clock. I said, absolutely, I'm coming back. So he says, I just want to caution you on one thing. So I said, what? He said, a couple of weeks earlier, we saw a lioness with her cubs crossing this road from left to right. And so please go back during the day hours. Don't go there at night time. He meant to say, don't even go during the daytime. I turned around right there and then. I said, oh my God. This whole place was full of animals, elephants, tigers. Remarkable place. Anyway, so this Adivasi and Vanavasi was one time just going there. He was walking around the forest and he found that there seemed to be the remnants of a Shiva temple. He and his wife both looked at it and he says, my God, this must have been a temple at one time because it looks like a temple, but it was run over by all kinds of dirt and foliage, and all these bats and birds were on, and there were cobwebs all over the place, unrecognizable. And there was a vigraha of Shiva, which was also completely covered up. So they both said, we are very fortunate to have come across this. Why don't we revive this? So they cleaned up the whole thing, and they worked very hard to remove all the dirt and kicked out all the bats and birds and so on, made it as shiny as possible. They were very proud of it, and they just started to do some puja to Shiva every morning and said, we are so happy that in the midst of this forest we have found you. Then he found that I don't know how to do puja. All I do is I fold my hands and I say Om Namah Shivaya. Maybe he doesn't even know Om Namah Shivaya, what it means or anything. So he says, let's do this. Let's go to the nearest town and find a pujari who really knows how to do puja and learn from him as to how to do puja. So they went to a local temple, and there was a pujari there, Brahmana, sitting there and doing some things. And they approached him. So they said, what is it that you want? They said, we have got this Shiva temple in the midst of this forest, and I want to learn how to do puja. Can you teach it to me? No, first he said, can you come? So he says, how far is it? He says, it's about 10-12 kilometers away. He says, no, I can't do that because I have a temple to take care of and I cannot really go with you. So that's not possible. So he says, okay, if you cannot come, can you teach us how to do puja? So he said, he looked it up and down and he said, you are a bhil, right? He says, yes. So he says, I'm not supposed to teach non-Brahmins how to do puja. So I cannot teach it to you. So they said, listen, we are not trying to take over your job or anything. We just want to do our own puja and we will just... So he said, no. I cannot teach it to you. So they were very disappointed. They came back, he and his wife, and started to work there. One day, the local king was doing some hunting of the tigers and happened to pass by that temple. And a lot of the tigers were actually pouncing on him. So he was in somewhat of a danger. He and his 2 or 3 other people were on horses, and they could tell these tigers are really out. And so this Bhil really knew exactly how to tackle these tigers and protected him from any harm. So the king said, how can I help you? You saved my life. So he said, sir, all I want to do is to learn how to do puja to Shiva. And the local Brahmins don't know, they don't want to help me. So the Raja said, listen, I am not a Brahmana myself, I'm just the Kshatriya, and I do some simple pujas, and I can teach you that. So they said, fine, that's all we need. So the Raja got down and taught him some how to do some Shodasha puja, how to do this, that or the other. He says, I do this simple one as a to Shiva, and I'll be happy to share that with you. So he did that, and they both started to do puja, and then Swami Maheshananji says, this is all from Skanda Purana. These temple pujaris, they follow vidhi. On certain days the pujas have to be done. On certain days it should not be done. It should be done on a proper time. They all follow all that. This is all the way it should be done. There's no criticism to that. And if there is raining or something, then you can do without it. You can do this. There is something written in the Vedas. These fellows were so in love with doing the puja. On hot days and cold days, nothing stopped them. If they don't do a puja in the morning, their whole days was spoiled. So the ending of the story was in the Puranas, Shiva paid them a visit and said, I am very impressed by your dedication. And whatever they gave him, the right, just the darshan itself was enough for them. This is the distinction made between independent love, which is based on no one telling you what to do, and the efficacy of doing that. There is no parallel to it. This is karma yoga. But just by doing things you get some phalam, no doubt about it. Not nearly as much as swatantrata purvakam jnanam. And so here the swatantrata purvakam yajna is why the Purusha is capable of doing the pradhana yajna and not the gauna yajna. Because gauna yajna, people have to be forced into it. So this is the distinction between them. So here, let's see, how much time do I have? About 9-10 minutes. Okay. So it is written in our Shastra. So we can end this section by summarizing. Purusha is the Pradhana Bali. Okay, so that section is over. So now we see the preparation for the Pradhana Bali. So from here, you know, in the Christians have this and many of the other religions called twice born. So Hindus also have the same thing. It's called Dvijaha. So Dvijaha here so means that the Yajamana is one person who is fit to do puja, to do yajna. It's called Yajamana, who is willingly doing it. There are two types of Yajamanas, and both are the same person but two different aspects of it. So one is called Mithunat Yajamana, and the other one is called Yajnat Yajamana. Mithunad means the sexual union of mother and father generating the Yajamana. So this is a human being born out of the sexual union of a male and a female, and which consists of the sperm and the egg, which consists of all the Panchamahabhutas in the form of pranaha giving life to this person. This is how we all are. And so we are Mithunat Yajamana. Our birth is due to the Mithuna, the mixing up of these two segments of life. And this person, because the beginning is that of from the Pancha Mahabhutas, it is finite. It will grow, it will function for a while, then it will get destroyed, and it just goes away. Because it's a structure which is based out of elements. This is the first type. Then it is very possible that you invoke in yourself that Yajamana whose beginning is not Mithuna, not a sexual union. Then what? It is based on the potential of doing the yajna, properly, understanding all the steps properly, and eventually throwing yourself into the fire. Throwing yourself into the fire means what? It means throwing the Mithunat Yajamana into the fire. All the material things into the fire. So here all the acharyas say really the only mukti, the only moksha that all of us are aspiring for. You see, this is an important thing to see. Let's just think about that. The real moksha we want is not to be dependent on the body, the mind, the life-giving prana, the sense organs, and the organs of actions. So these are the material being. And I don't know what else to do. I only think of myself as a material being. And it is being destroyed in the front of my eyes. I can see myself aging. I can see my limbs going not strong. And I can see myself disappearing. There's no question of a moksha as long as I have an identity with this Mithunat Yajamana. No way. It is stupidity to even think about that. So the only way that I can think about is not to understand that I have nothing to do with this body. If that is not true, then all is lost. There's nothing else that I can do. But if the possibility exists, which is what Vedanta is talking about, yes, you have to understand that you have nothing to do with this. And as you see it being thrown into the fire, literally not thrown into the fire, we will see what the process is. We won't complete it today, but we'll do it next time. The only way to really achieve moksha, is to really abandon it. Abandon it. So the only story that I reminds me in my mind, and I will just tell that, and then I will close the class because there's more to be done, and I'll make a sign here saying that we will start from here. So you must have heard of this very common story. I heard this from Swami Chinmayanandaji. I remember this so well. So it appears that there was a very learned person who was well read. He had gone to college and he had studied all the shastras, and he was a kind of a Renaissance person, well dressed with silk clothes and nicely coiffured hair, and really sure of everything and just be very happy with things. So he had to cross a river, and there was a boatman who the guy was very poor. He didn't have proper clothing. He didn't take care of his body that much. He had a big paunch and this, that, or the other. And the way he was growing his beard and so on, he was not really well shaven. He was just a boatman. He didn't need to do all of that. So the person said, can you take me to the other side? I'm in a bit of a hurry, so I hope you don't have to wait for other people to also come. So he says, okay, I'll take you. Just come. So he sat down. So this fellow was sitting there watching the boatman work his oars, going back and forth. So he struck up a conversation with him. He said, tell me, have you ever studied grammar? So he said, sir, I don't know grammar. I don't know. Is that language or what? He says, no, but it's the component of the... He says, I don't know what you're talking about. No, I don't know anything about it. I've never done any grammar. So he said, one fourth of your life is wasted. Then he said, okay, but how about mathematics, arithmetic, algebra? Have you done any of that? So he said, sir, I can count a few things here and there, but I really don't know algebra and all these trigonometry or anything. I have heard of it, but no, I don't know anything. So he says, another fourth of your life is wasted. Then after a while he says, okay, now how about classical music? Have you ever studied classical music? He said, sir, I'm sure I have not, because I don't really have an ear for it. I can hum some desi songs here and there, some ditties, and I've heard some Bollywood ditties, and but classical song and ragas and so on, I don't really know. So he says, another fourth of your life is wasted. My God, what a person you are. You'd have really not lived what you need to do. So just as they were talking, one of the rafters became loose and water started coming into the boat. And So then the boatman immediately tried to take a bucket out and take the water out. But the more he did that, the many of the rafters broke and water was now gushing in. And now there was danger of really sinking. So the person said, "Sir, I think we are in deep danger. We have to abandon this whole boat. Do you know swimming?" So the person said, "No, I never learned swimming." Then he says, your entire life is wasted. And he jumped off the boat. This is the message of Vedanta. Really, if you look around, people are so busy in becoming smart. Stock market, medicine, law, jokes, and friends, and music, and all those kinds of things. I mean, this is real life. And sometimes I meet these very smart people, honestly much smarter than I am. Their memory is excellent, their arguments about things is just great. I can't even criticize Trump in front of them. I have 3 or 4 friends who are voters of Trump, and I cannot convince them. I can tell them that, he's got some character flaws and so on. He says, that's nothing. As long as he's doing good for the country, that's all that matters. There, finished. What can you do about it? Very smart people. But if I ever ask them, have you looked into immortality while living? And they'll say, what the heck are you talking about? Let's change the subject. It doesn't even the subject doesn't appear to be worthwhile discussing. I'm not sure whether I am going to achieve moksha in my life, but certainly a person that hasn't even started looking into it certainly is not going to. So anyway, so that process has to be started, and this yajna has to be understood. And as we will see as we progress on this verse, the sacrifice of the pradhana bali has to be done. How it will be done, we will see hopefully next week. Okay. Om asato ma satgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. All right, let's see. Hi, Panna, it's good to have you. I thought you were, I guess you can see the evening class because you're busy with Swami Tattva Vidananda's course. Zarina also, yes, but she's been coming regularly. Thundries, I've not seen you for a while. Welcome back. Jairaj, Jai Sri Raj says, does anyone notice Guruji's words being transcribed and superimposed in this live stream? Really? Is that right? I didn't know anything about that. So Mr. Srinivasan says the Skanda Purana story is similar to that of Kannappa Nayanar, which I have not heard about, but I take your word for it, and very possibly something like that. I think that the Puranic stories, the Puranas themselves are meant to convey the deeper truths in a storyline which can be appreciated. So, for example, this this is a very good distinction between a Vidhi Purvakam Brahmana who's doing everything according to Vidhi, but someone who doesn't know how to and doesn't matter to that person as long as the true love of Ishvara is there. So this kind of a contrasting kind of a thing, is provided by all the 6 different layers of our Shastra, all the way from Brahma Sutras to Upanishads to Smritis to Puranas to Itihasa and Bhashyas, and they have a different level of description. The truth remains the same. So the Tatparya Nishchaya is always the same, what is called a ascertainment of. In other words, are they saying different things? So for example, the Purana story about the Bhil, is it pointing out something different from what the Upanishads are saying? No, they're all saying exactly the same thing, but they're being said in a different way so that it is more appropriate to the different kinds of human beings, different minds, different stages of development, and so on. So yeah, the Purana stories, I'm very, very sad that Swami Pratyek Bodhananda is no longer with us, but he was a great exponent of Bhagavatam, knew a lot of stories, and whenever he would visit, not whenever, I think he's been here twice, he would regale us with stories from Bhagavatam. And Swami Tattvavidananda also knows a lot of Bhagavatam. Swami Dayanandji and Swami Viditatmananda are not so much as much. They stuck to more of the Upanishads and so on. Okay, while I see if there's any other question. Yeah. Balamani says 4 types, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra, all important. Why the inequality and supremacy prevail? So, Maniji, we will discuss this in much more detail in the classes to come. So I will let's not get into that at this point, because it is going to be a main subject which we will discuss. So if I can hold off on answering that question, I would appreciate it. And while you're thinking about any other questions to ask, let me just mention it to you that this morning I had a very pleasant conversation with one of the 2 Chalakare brothers, Srinivas in Bangalore. One of our students, Nagesh Avadhani, many of you may know him. I knew that several years back when I was teaching Rudram, we did the same thing. We want to thank the Chalakare brothers by giving them a donation, sending them a donation. And now that we are chanting Purusha Suktam, I wanted to do the same thing. So he made the connection through his sister in Bangalore, and I called one of the 2 brothers of the Chalakare brothers, Srinivas, this morning, and a very nice conversation with him. And we are in the process of sending him some donation. So to thank him for this excellent enunciation that we listen to every week. So I think that will be wonderful. So that was good. Yeah, it was interesting. He asked me, he said, "Sir, what is your name?" So I said, "Vijay Kapoor." He says, "Your name sounds like you're from North India, aren't you?" I said, "Yes, I was born in Amritsar." So, he doesn't probably come across any North Indians as part of his life there with this chanting and puja. So he was somewhat surprised. So I had to actually tell him how I got started with studying with Swami Dayanandji and so on. He was very interested in learning about that. But I had heard this, we people from the north, sometimes we talk about South Indians as a kind of a group. Oh, he's from South India. We don't make a distinction about Tamilians and Telugu speaking and so on, which is South India. But this is good to hear that he was not talking about any. He says, "You are from North India." I said, "Yes, I'm from North India." Anyway, that was a good conversation, and I'm happy that we made connections with that. So I thought I'd let you know that. All right, if there's no other questions, which I think there are not, I will take your leave and we look forward to seeing you next week. Om.